Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us here today. We know many of you are juggling visa timelines, important decisions, and frankly, a lot of uncertainty. So, we hope this webinar brings some clarity to your decision making. In this webinar, we try to cover your most important questions, your issues and worries, and frankly, all the uncertainty that comes with this process. So this is why we call it your webinar. But if we don't get the time to cover all your questions, we urge you to get in touch with us and send us an email at sgp@sandragomespinto.com, and we'll put our contact details in the chat. And for the first 30 people who contact us with the code SGP Sandra Gomes Pinto, your partner to moving to Portugal, we will be offering a free initial consultation. So for those who don't know me, I'm Marissa Colasso, and I'm part of the team here at Sandra Gomes Pinto Associates. I'm happy and proud to contribute to the lives of people moving here for a better and healthier life. And I'm joined by Dr. Sandra herself, who many of you already know by name. Dr. Sandra has been a practicing lawyer for over 30 years, and for more than a decade, she has focused extensively on helping Americans, Canadians, British, and other international clients relocate to Portugal. So, Dr. Sandra, before we dive into the heavy legal stuff, I would like to ask you to give us a brief overview about yourself, the office, and what it is you do.
My name is Sandra Gomes Pinto. I'm a lawyer here for over 30 years. I've been working nonstop in Portugal, mostly for international clients that had investment, litigation, and other type of issues. I was a partner of a big firm for Portugal for over 20 years. Last 10 years, I created my own office. We always were involved also in litigation and arbitration, but these last 10 years, we focused from the beginning a lot in foreigners that are investing here, residing, decided to move to Portugal, and also creating companies and have all of certain legal issues here. During my time, I took part of some important litigation processes, such as the enlargement of the bridge Vincent Abril, or the renovation of the German school project was partially funded for the German government. At this point, we focus a lot on Americans, Canadians, and British moving to Portugal. We make sure they have a flawless legal process. We have a legal team and also a relocation team that takes care of all the other aspects. So we try to be a one-stop shop. At this point, after assisting hundreds of families, we know exactly where the problems lie. We try each day to do a better service, to address better difficult problems such as the AIMA, the appointments, and other issues. So we are a team of people that do like people, do like being of service, and that are very happy to have an impact on people, on foreigners that want to move here for a better life, and to contribute so that they can fulfill their objectives and their dreams.
So for all the people who are still in the initial phase of planning, could you briefly talk about the difference between the visa pathways, the D7 and the D8, for those who are still contemplating?
So the D7 was the one that appeared first. The D8 came later. The D7 is for all those that are passive income holders. Passive income is income they don't have to work for, such as pensions, social security, rentals, royalties, interest, dividends. So if you are a pensionist, if you are an investor and you have a certain amount of income, which the minimum is you have to show that on average monthly you earn 920 euros per month, plus 50% if you are bringing a spouse as a main applicant, plus 30% for each child that you are bringing. So the D7 is for all those, again, that are passive income holders. So they have income that they don't have to work for. And the D7 was the one that appeared initially, and initially this regime covered part of the D8, the digital nomads that started to appear in as a worldwide trend during the pandemic time. The D8 is a visa for all those that are working in Portugal while being paid by a foreign entity. And this is irrespective of the nature of the work. So you can have a labor contract, you can be an independent service provider, and any time of formal legal structure you can imagine. The big picture is that you are working in Portugal while being paid in Portugal by a foreign entity or individuals. And although the typical name is digital nomad visa, it's not only, this can lead to misinterpretations. This is not only for those that are in the digital world or the tech world. So you could be a painter, but if you have clients that are paying you abroad, or you can be a musician that gives teaches online, but if you have international clients and the money come from entities or individuals that are situated in other countries while you are residing in Portugal, all these enters into the category of a D8 visa, and this is a D8 visa. In terms of financial requirements, it's very important to know that the D8 visa holders have to have 4 times the amount on a monthly basis that a D7 visa holder has, meaning they have to, at this time, 2026, they have to show that on average, on a monthly basis, they earn 3,680 euros plus 50% for a spouse plus 30% for each child. But it's important also to note that you don't have, it's not mandatory that you earn this amount each month. What is important that you can show and prove in a consistent basis is that on average, this is the amount you earn on a monthly basis, but this can be an average too. So I think I gave a brief overview of the differences. I would also like to say that all these two visas are residential visas, and in many aspects, they follow exactly, they have the same regime in terms of renovation and minimum stay times. In all those aspects, they follow in many aspects the same regime. The main difference is the D7 is for all that have passive income, pensions, social securities, royalties, dividends, interests. The D8 is for all those that are active, that are working in Portugal while being paid by foreign entities or individuals. These are the main differences, and also the financial requirements. The D7, you have to show that on average you earn the Portugal minimum wage, which is 920 euros. For the D8, you have to show 4 times this amount, which is in 2026, 3,680 euros per month, plus 50% for a spouse, plus 30% for each child. So I hope I cover the main differences between these two visas.
And I think it's clear that the D8 visa has a higher income requirement that you have to
Yes.
show. So to talk more about the D7, the passive income, could you give us a brief overview of the process and the requirements and just the timelines that people have to keep in mind when they apply for this visa?
The timeline is always a little bit difficult because you never know how you'll get an appointment, and it's with the VFS or the consulate. So this can be a little bit tricky to expect very rigorous timelines, and this is important to bear in mind. But we'll give you an idea. Typically, if there is no major delays, and if you start now, and if you move very fast, typically within 6 months, you could come to Portugal, although the whole process would not have ended. So just imagine if you started with us today. If you say you want to hire us, if you send you the fees and we enter into a contract, then you'll send us the documents within 1 or 2 days, we will issue a power of attorney. You'll sign the power of attorney, and immediately afterwards, we would ask for an if, remotely, online, or in person. And we would also immediately ask you for documents and start the processes of opening the bank account. This is something these are the first steps. The third step, we try to understand what is your timeline, when you want to come, when you can come, and we will start to try to get you an appointment in the jurisdiction of the place that your official residency. So, and this is a very important note, you cannot choose to start your process in the country of legal residency or nationality, but you cannot choose the consulate or the VFS. It will be the consulate of or the VFS agency of the place where you have your official residency. And this is very important, and there are very, very few exceptions to this. So immediately afterwards, we will try to get you an appointment in VFS. And for those that work with us, this is the work we do. We have several people doing that on a continuous basis. We have several devices of artificial intelligence doing that. And we must say that it has been extremely hard to get appointments for the Washington jurisdiction. Although just yesterday we got an appointment for Houston, which is also a consulate that you can use when you reside within the Washington jurisdiction. So it takes time, but it works. So when we get the appointment, we would immediately start working on all the details that you have to have ready for the appointment. One of the major things and the most delicate things is the criminal record apostille, because the consulate will now more and more, previously they wanted to see a criminal record that was issued within the previous 90 days, but now we will advise our clients to have a criminal record that was issued within the previous 80 days, because we are hearing more and more than when you have a criminal record that was issued 85 days before the appointment, they really don't like it. So this is one of the main critical aspects that you have to take care when you get an appointment, is to take care of the FBI criminal record and apostille. At this time, we know exactly what are the best people to connect to make that in an expedite and an efficient way. So this is the FBI apostille is very critical, because you have to have on the one hand, you have to prepare it on time. On the other hand, you cannot do it with too much anticipation, because then when you reach the consulate appointment, the FBI has already expired. I will take a look, then we will explain to all our clients all the documentations they need to have ready for the appointment, and generally our team double check, triple checks all the documentation that is needed for the appointment. I will give a brief overview over these documents, but it's important to bear in mind that this is a general overview. So this doesn't replace a professional analysis and a look into your specific situation, because there are many details that you can miss. So in respect to the D7 list, what you need? You need to have an official form. Typically, our team fills in the official form. Although it seems a simple thing, we've noticed alterations and new demands of the consulate in respect to the filling of these forms. Then you'll have to bring a notarized copy of your passport, of the biographic pages. It's important that the passport has been issued not more than 10 years ago, and that it will be valid after 3 months of the initial visa. So this is aspect also the validity of the passport you have to take into account, and you need to get a notarized copy of the biographic pages. You also be needing 2 passport photos. This is also important for the application, and you'll need a valid travel insurance. These travel insurance have to have medical coverage, 30,000 euros plus emergencies, Plus, normally now that there have been changes on this aspect, but now it should be valid for 12 months. It's important that is not deductible, so that you do not deduct any amount from the insurance. And we've heard of people that have had problems in this respect. You also be needing a personal statement. Typically, we want our clients to write their own story, because a genuine and true story, it's a very powerful thing. But we many times give a sample so they can have something to guide them to do in the personal statement. You should write exactly why you are moving to Portugal, where you are having the accommodation, what are your financial means, and in the end you should put an index of all the documentation that you'll be attaching to your application, which makes the process much simpler for those that are analyzing it. Another thing you'll be needing is an authorization statement, so an authorization for the Portuguese authorities to check your criminal record in Portugal. There have been changes on this respect. Some consulates say that they didn't want this anymore, but now we've seen many consulates requesting this requirement again. So we always take a cautious approach. We try to make sure our clients have a bulletproof process, so we make sure they do have everything possible. As a disclaimer, sometimes we ask for more things more than the concrete VFS will ask, but we ask this always for a reason, and because in previous cases people needed to present that. Another thing you need to present is an FBI or a criminal record apostilled. You also need to show proof of accommodation in Portugal. Proof of accommodation is one of the main pillars of the D visas. You have to show that you'll be having a roof under your head here, and typically you'll be needing a 12-month lease or a term of responsibility with certain formalities, or you need to buy a house in Portugal. Most of our clients and most of people opt for the 12-month lease. Plus, to do the lease, you need typically to show the registry of the lease before the tax authority. Ideally, you also should present rental receipts. We've seen the necessity, people asking for the landlord's mobile, and also I think it's advisable to show a land registry certificate. This is well known in Portuguese, certidão permanente, so you can show to the authorities that the landlord is actually the owner of the property. You also need to show proofs of subsistence, so you need to show the proof that you earn the 920 euros per month if it's a D7 visa, or you need to show that you earn the 3,680 euros on work if you are a D8 visa holder. And it's advisable to bring the 4 months US bank statements before the application. You should also present a Portuguese bank statement with at least a 1-year minimum wage, which is 30,000 euros. It's also advisable, we've seen some consulates asking for flight tickets to Portugal. We've seen some people asking for a copy of your driver's license. We've seen people asking for a copy of your background check. And in many places now they are asking for a printed copy of your official list. This is general information. This won't take out the necessity to have legal and professional assistance that will look specifically at your case, but this can give you a brief overview of what you need for the D7 visa. Then you will have the appointment. In our office, we also do a legal preparation council for the appointment. It's important to note that the appointment does not have the structure of an interview, but more of documentation checking. You have to bring all your documents in hard copies to the appointments, and we in many situations are not used to bring hard copies because things are more and more digital, but now you have to bring the hard copies. Our advice is to bring everything very organized and to know exactly where is each document. It's also important to bear in mind that now they are typically taking your passport, and so you would be without passport while you are waiting for your visa to be stamped. In the US, it is possible while they keep your passport to ask for a second one. It is legally possible. So if you need to travel while you're waiting for the visa to be stamped, you can ask for a second passport. Then this is where sometimes there are a certain time of uncertainty, because many times, typically, the passport takes 60 working days to be stamped, but this timeline can be shorter or can be more time than this. So many times there is a tracking number. So many times our clients don't know what is going on with their process after they had the appointment and before the passport is stamped. And on this, we know the people, we know all the consulates, so we enter into contact with them and try to understand exactly what is the status of the visa. And this has helped because this is a moment of uncertainty that's making such a big move as relocating to another country. This is a moment where you don't want to be uncertain. So we try to make sure professionally that we accompany the person the whole out. We are professionally accompany the person throughout all this process, so people do not feel unsupported or lost or lonely from a professional and a formal point of view. Then your passport is stamped. And when your passport is stamped, it's very important to check whether you got an AIMA appointment or not. If you didn't get the AIMA, if you get an AIMA appointment, we set in our files and we start preparing and dedicating what type of documentation and forms you need to prepare for the AIMA appointment. If you didn't have the AIMA appointment, we have to get you the AIMA appointment. It has, in many situations, been a challenging process, but for all our clients, we managed to get them AIMA appointments. We had over 60 AIMA appointments over the last month, and all our clients got an AIMA appointment. So with persisting, knowing the system, knowing the bureaucracy, this is something that it's possible to obtain the AIMA appointment. Then we give all the documentation needed for the AIMA appointment, and we verify and prepare the file for our clients, and one of our experienced lawyers will go to the AIMA appointment with our clients, and which is also an important issue, which can be in everywhere in the country. So the law says that the AIMA appointment should be in the place that you indicate as your place of residency, but the truth is that the AIMA sets the appointments according to their vacancies and availabilities, so you can have an appointment in Vila Real while being in the Algarve, or the opposite side, or in Porto, or in Setúbal, or wherever. We see the most cases, people don't have the AIMA appointment where they reside. For the AIMA appointment, although this can change and the process is constantly evolving, and this doesn't exempt you to have a professional help and a professional analysis of your case, but in general terms, you need your passport, proof of your means of subsistence, showing your passport with a stamp where you entered in Portugal. And if you don't have that stamp because you didn't enter into the airport, you need to have your boarding pass. You need to show updated proof of your means of subsistence, ideal the bank statements and the proof of the passive income. You need to have your Portuguese bank statement. This can vary. There are different opinions about this, but we would advise at least to have the 30,000 euros in the Portuguese bank statement. You need to show your proof of accommodation. If you have a lease, you need to show the lease contract, the register before the tax authority, the rental receipts. If the entity that is leasing is a firm, you should have its commercial registry. If it's also important that you have the certidão permanente, an utility bill, to make sure, and this can vary. This is still the process in many of its aspects, despite the fact that there are lists, there are rules, the process is still very subjective and there are still a lot of discretionary powers. Another thing that you need also for the AIMA appointment is the NIF, which is something similar to your Social Security in the US, a health insurance or an enrollment in the SENS, ideally the name of the parents and a phone number, which is required in the form. You also be needing the specific forms for the AIMA appointment, and you need to pay a fee, which is typically 181 euros plus 50 cents. Just going a little bit back to the VFS appointment, it's important to know that to pay their fees, there are different requirements and rules in the different consulates. In VFS in San Francisco, they would want you to pay with a money order or cashier's check, while in Washington, you have to pay with a credit or a debit card, while other places do accept cash. But it's important, that's another little detail that can jeopardize the whole process. Then, going back to the AIMA appointment, after having your successful AIMA appointment, within, they say, 90 working days from this AIMA appointment, they will issue your residency permit card. We've seen that different timelines. We've seen people receiving the resident permit card within 15 days, within 3 months, so this can vary. But this is also a moment of uncertainty where we do the tracking. We go often to the AIMA to check what is exactly the status of the issuance of the resident permit card. And this is also a moment where we can help and assist our clients. Once you receive the residence permit card, it's important that will be valid for 2 years. It's important to take into account that before that 2 years, you should start preparing for the renovation. So in a nutshell, I say this is how the D7 process, and although this doesn't exempt you from professional assistant and someone looking at your specific case, because there are specific rules and many details that I didn't cover, but this gives you a brief overview of the process and the formal requirements.
I think this is all very, very useful information for our audience. And as you say, quite often the devil is in the details.
Yes.
Especially because there are so many unwritten rules
Yes.
with this process.
Yes.
So another big concern that people are having right now is the difficulty in getting the VFS appointments and the AIMA appointments. So Dr. Sandra, looking ahead in 2026, what is the strategy here and how do you help clients get these appointments?
At this moment, it's specifically difficult to get appointments for those that are residing within the Washington jurisdiction. We have people working on that nonstop. We have artificial intelligence bots working on that, but it's very difficult. But just yesterday, we got an appointment for one client. So it's difficult. It's not impossible, but it requires a lot of effort and perseverance and professional assistance and assistance with all the means that are at our disposal. So this is not impossible, but this is difficult, and this is something we can help clients with. And over the 10 years, we always manage. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it gets less time, but we always got appointments that we had never had clients that were left without appointments. So it's difficult, but it's not impossible.
And with the AIMA appointment, after they moved to Portugal, has it been getting better? People have been hearing about backlogs, but from what you are seeing, has it been?
I think it's much better than 1 year ago. So 1 year ago, it was very hard to get AIMA appointments. Now we are seeing that many visas already are getting AIMA appointments, or there is a specific means where we are able to get AIMA appointments for our clients. Sometimes they set the AIMA appointments down the road, but we also, in many situations where the AIMA appointment was very delayed, had a huge backlog, we managed to anticipate. We cannot promise, but in many situations we managed to anticipate the AIMA appointment. We also managed to have couples together when they had the appointment separated. We managed to have families together when the four members of the family, even kids, each one had the AIMA appointment in different places, sometimes with young kids, and sometimes it was at the same time. But this is why a professional assistance is important, and in many situations we cannot promise, but we have been able to help our clients to anticipate the scheduling of their appointments and also to manage to coordinate in a way that's efficient and comfortable for the whole family. As you can imagine, you cannot leave a 5-year-old having their appointment alone with a lawyer, because legal this is not possible, because he needs the parent to sign. But we've managed to solve these complicated issues for a lot of our clients.
Another question that we get quite often is regarding the lease that they would need to present at the VFS appointment, the
Yes.
accommodation in Portugal. So one of the questions here was, I need a 12-month lease to apply for the visa, but landlords won't rent to me without a visa. So how do they navigate this? How do people solve this legally? And another issue is without overpaying, the risk of getting scammed or signing something that could later be rejected by AIMA.
It's not mandatory to have a legal visa that you show a visa. So this requirement doesn't make sense. But sometimes if the landlord is approached by a Portuguese lawyer or a Portuguese that explains that that he can trust that person and that he doesn't have the grounds or legal justification to ask for a visa, this can be overcome. But it's also important to check, to do a legal due diligence on the contracts. We've had clients that leased properties that were not, before they came to us, that were not from the landlord. So it's very important to check the documentation and also to check the clauses of the lease. People think that's unimportant. They can just chat GPT that, but then can be details that can cause major problems in the future. So it's very important that you have someone looking at the documentation at the property, someone looking at the lease, someone making sure they are not demanding too much money, someone sometimes negotiating, explaining that a guarantor should not be needed because that person has sufficient means and it has a lot of personal situation that can guarantee that they will pay. So it's this negotiation of the lease, checking doing a legal due diligence, saying that a guarantor is not needed because the person has enough personal guarantee, and also verifying everything, and especially the clauses of the lease. It's a quite important thing where we give professional assistance to our clients, and it has been quite important.
I think this is definitely one of the areas where getting advice early can save a lot of money and stress.
Yes, and additional very complicated issues. I think I don't want anyone to have litigation in Portugal. Yes, even sometimes little details as having a home inspection or before the person enters into the apartment, so then afterwards the landlord cannot stay with the deposit, because then you are able to prove that if there are small damages before, they already were pre-existing damages and were not caused by you.
Yes. Another big concern for some of our clients is tax. And now that the old NHR is no longer in effect and there's a new NHR 2.0. So can you tell us a little bit about this? Has it changed? Is Portugal still tax efficient for retirees with foreign pensions? And from a legal and tax planning perspective, what is your view?
So the NHR was very good because it allows the pensioners initially to be totally exempted to pay taxes here in respect to their pension, and later they only had to pay 10%, and if they were not paying the same amount in the country of origin, and exempted them to pay taxes in respect to their passive income generated in their countries of origin. This general NHR is no longer existent. So now for the NHR, it's only applicable for restrictive situation and professions, such as a startup, or if you are a professor or a researcher, or if you are a doctor or in the tech business. So it's limited the situations where you can have the NHR. And the NHR gives you the benefit of having a 20% flat tax rate in respect to your income generated in Portugal. But again, you also have the great benefit that if you have foreign income, foreign passive income generated abroad in your country of origin or in any other country, this is generally, not in all situations, exempted from paying taxes here if you benefit from the NHR. Again, to apply for the NHR, you must first be tax resident in Portugal, and immediately in the year that you become tax resident, you have to apply for the NHR. There is a time limit to do it, and so there is lots of restrictions. I still see many. There was an article recently for Californians saying they were sparing so much money in Portugal that it's almost a sin. So I think Portugal, in terms of healthcare, of food, of restaurants, of services, of transportation, do offer a much affordable way of living. So it's still, despite the fact that you may end up paying taxes, it's still very attractive from a financial point of view. And it's, in this case, sometimes it's worth to do some tax planning to see how you tax. But it's also very important to know that you should never be double taxed. So there is a convention to avoid double taxation in place, and you should never be double taxed. So there should always be mechanisms to compensate and to avoid the double taxation. And that's important to know. But I think from a financial point of view, from a point of view of quality of life, for a point of view, just if you compare healthcare at a high level, I would say that Portugal, the healthcare is 1/10 of the cost in the United States, with a very caring system, with a very caring person. So it's still, in many aspects, Portugal is still very attractive from a financial point of view.
And I think there's a lot of confusion around this one question.
Yes.
So if someone applies for a D7 or a D8 visa, can their spouse and children apply at the same time? Or are they facing years of waiting for family reunification appointments?
So the majority of our clients apply at the same time, which is perfectly possible. In the past, it was not possible. So you can only do this process after the main applicant got its residency card. Now, recently, in the last 2 years, 3 years, this is possible. So the whole family come at the same time. Also, even if the family doesn't come at the same time, if it's a spouse or children, you won't face major problems here.
Okay. And another question that we've got on accommodation.
Yes.
Do applicants need a promissory lease or a fully registered lease with finances? And what happens if the landlord isn't the legal owner according to the land registry?
So I would talk with a specific consulate. I would say that a promissory lease would suffice, but you'd have to have the guarantee that's a real lease, it's a really promissory, and that's a real contract. I would say yes, but I would double check with the concrete consulate because these might be tricky waters. So I will double check whether the consulate would accept. I would rather say do not put a promissory lease contract. If I wanted to have a lease contract that would not be immediately enforced, I would call it a lease contract and would say that it would start to be enforced once you have your visa stamped and move to Portugal. So I would probably formulate it in a different way to have more chances to be accepted by the consulate. So I would say it's a lease contract, but it will only enter into force once you have your visa approved and your passport stamped.
Okay, and another important aspect, I think, of the visa process planning for our clients is the criminal record timing. And I think this one causes a lot of frustration with people planning their visa process. So if an FBI or criminal background check is valid for 90 days, but the appointment is 4 months away, how should people time this application for the FBI background check without having to do it twice and redo it?
Yes, I will try. It depends on the place. The possibilities to get criminal background checks are different from place to place, and also to get the apostille. For sure, the person, if you're having the appointment within 4 months, you should not in principle, take care of the FBI immediately, because then you risk that it will be expired by the time you have the appointment. So it will differ. This is something where you should take a look at concrete situation to make sure that, and I would try that the FBI, by the time you have the appointment, is issued in the previous 80 days. We've seen situations where the FBI was issued within the previous 85 years and they didn't like it in the consulate. So we would have to take a look at the concrete situation, what are the possibilities, and try to give the concrete advice to that person to make sure they have the FBI apostilled on time, but to make sure so also at the same pass that by the time they get to the appointment, the FBI is issued in the previous 80 days.
So the next question is about the delay with AIMA appointments. So if someone gets the visa stamped, valid for 4 months, but their AIMA appointment is scheduled only after the visa expires, are they illegal? Can they travel back to their home country out of the Schengen area? Is this possible, and what is your...
So they are normally legal because they are normally also laws to prorogate the validity of their situation. And this is the way it was something that happened to you, Marisa. But you've seen many of our clients in these situations, and they do not face in Portugal great problems. It's understood by the Portuguese authorities that there are delays. It's a notorious situation, so people have not faced problems here because their visa is expired, but they didn't have the AIMA appointment. In some situations, we managed to anticipate the AIMA, not for all the clients, but for some of the persons, and that has been a huge help. This situation might be a little bit tricky if you want to travel. In your case, you dare to travel, as we know, and you had no problems coming back to Portugal. But this is something we advise that people do very cautiously, and to get eventually an injunction for a judge saying that you have no problem coming back to Portugal.
Yes. Another worry, I think, is healthcare.
Yes.
Do residents really need private insurance once they move to Portugal? And what about pre-existing conditions? Are people at risk of being denied coverage?
Yes. So I'm from a family of doctors, and I'm a huge fan of the national healthcare system, although we notice that there is a less investment and there are difficulties in the national healthcare system. So I think it's very important for foreigners to enroll in the national healthcare system. Legal residents still have a lot of benefits. We've had a client that had diabetes type 1, and he didn't need to pay anything related to her diabetes type 1 situation, which she spared 1,000 euros per month with the national healthcare system. This might change in the future, but this is the situation. You may get a family doctor, which typically it's a very good doctor. So the national healthcare system, it's a good system, and you should have it. My advice would be that on top of that, you'll get also a private insurance, which in Portugal, it's much more affordable, and it's possible to get an insurance without age limits, and that does not limit or exclude pre-existing conditions. This is totally possible in Portugal. Many of our clients managed to get this. We've seen people coming here and within 2 or 3 months getting surgeries that they say they could not pay in the United States.
And just a follow-up question, when is it possible for people who have moved here to register in the national healthcare system?
It depends on the places. I think I've seen places with different practical requirements, but typically, once you receive your resident permit card, then you can register in the national healthcare system.
So another question that we is regarding tax residency in Portugal. Will be double taxed on the sale of a house in the US or Canada? And what should people be thinking about before they sell?
So I think this might be the case, but there is always mechanisms to avoid double taxation. So if you have a house to sell and may earn capital gains, our initial advice would be to try to do this before you become tax resident, before you become. There are small details. So in some situations, you not earn capital gains in the US, and you don't have to declare that in the US. I doubt that this might cause a problem in Portugal, but we will have to take a look at your concrete situation. So our first advice would be that the person sells the house and has the capital gains, and only after this become tax resident in Portugal. This is the advice we typically do give to our clients, because you do have to present in Portugal, you present your worldwide income in once you move here.
I was just looking at some of the questions on our Q&A, just to take one or two. Do you assist with finding accommodations and securing the lease, and how do we help?
Yes, this is something we many of our clients cannot come to do that. So we have some persons from our team doing this. We make our only interest. We don't receive commissions from anyone. So we take into account what are the features our clients are looking for, and try what is their budget, and try to get the best fit for what they want, the place, and for the budget they have. Sometimes we make sure to get videos to make sure the photos that the people see match the reality of the place. Nowadays, it's science that the first place you are residing when you move to a country has a huge impact on your relocation. So this is something very important and very dear to us. We have someone, if the client hires us to do that, to take care of the utilities and extra things, which is super important for our clients. And we also make sure we get and take into account the client's interest, and so we are not someone focused on a commission or on our own interest in that respect. We to get the best fit we can for our clients, taking into account their needs, what they are looking for, their expectations, and their budgets.
I'm also seeing a lot of questions regarding legal fees and costs. Would you like to comment, Dr. Sandra?
So if you want our fees, we will take a look at what the assistant you are looking for, and taking that into account, we can provide a tailor-made fees and that cover whatever you need. So this is typically what we do.
Another question that was submitted to us before. People are asking about the delays with the residency card issuance, and they're hearing stories of people waiting more than 1 year for the resident cards. Is there any legal recourse if AIMA misses its deadline to comply?
So you can, yes, you can go to court, administrative court, if it takes more than 90 days to record formally the issuance. But as you have a company that also in our office, we normally follow up in details in a very consistent and detailed way the issuance of the resident cards of our clients, and most of them within 1 month, 2 months, sometimes 3 months, get their cards. So this is the very unusual situation that the person doesn't have the resident permit card after 1 year. But in that case, initially we'll go to the AIMA several times to understand what's going on. We would do several requests to the AIMA. We'll talk with them, and only afterwards we will do some more formally initiative before the court if our client wishes to do so. But this is abnormal. 1 year is totally abnormal, but we will make sure to know exactly what is going on and to surpass this situation.
I think we can take one more question from the Q&A.
Yes.
At what point do you become a tax resident?
What the law says is once you reside in, there are several requirements and there are several that have to combine together. So there is the 183 days rules. There is the to reside for a longer period and to have an abide in Portugal. But many times, from a practical point of view, what happens is you become civil resident and then you go to the tax authority to become tax resident. So normally is something you typically have some control over. Until now, this is the practice. It may change in the future, and the tax authorities may be more attentive to the 183 days rules, or also to see if you have shown through several means by leasing a place that you show the intention to reside here for a longer period. But until now, typically you become tax resident when you go to the tax platform and you ask to become tax resident.
We are still, of course, getting a lot of questions. So I would like to remind our audience that you can email us with your specific question, because I'm sure we've not answered all of them.
But I would
Yes?
ask some of the questions so we can address what your audience is looking for.
We have another viewer who's asking, is the New York consulate also slow for appointments?
I think the New York typically is much better than, it's one of the good places to have appointments, at least to our experience lately.
Okay. And is it possible to break a lease if there is a good reason for it? For example, if there is no heating in the flat, or if it gets too cold or hot.
You have to present the groundings for it, but it's possible to break a lease if you have a reason and justified reason to do so that makes your life extremely uncomfortable on that place.
Another question here is, do specialty professions like psychologists and medical doctors qualify for the NHR 2.0?
Doctors qualify for the NHR. The psychologists, eventually they could do if they meet some of the other requirements, not as a profession directly.
Okay. And then we have a more general question. Why?
But I think in respect to the NHR, it will be important to look at the concrete situation to do a correct analysis and an accurate analysis of the situation.
Then we have a more general question. Why is the income threshold more for a D8 than a D7?
Because typically those that are working earn much more than those that have passive income. And so when the Portuguese government created D8, which was after the D7, they said that this should be the amount for a foreign person that was working abroad to reside in Portugal.
So I would still like to remind our audience and our viewers that we will be offering a free consultation, a 30-minute consultation for those who email us and get in touch with us with the code SGP Sandra Gomes Pinto, your partner to move to Portugal. And we'll be happy to address your specific concerns, your worries with moving to Portugal. And yes, we thank you for being here and joining us. And I would like to ask Dr. Sandra if she has any final
Yes,
advice.
I have some things to say. On the one hand, we are open to suggestions for new webinars. What would you like to know? What would you like to be covered? What are your main questions for us? We will leave a little bit for our audience, so this will be very important for us. As a final note, I would like to also give a little note in respect to citizenship. The old law is still applicable, but even when and if the new law enters into force, I think it won't affect the daily life of Americans, British, Canadians moving here. In their daily life, they will still have the rights and the most freedoms as a Portuguese. And after 5 years, there's also the regime of permanent residency, which will take out of the picture also some of the immigration obligations. So Portugal, I think it's still a very, very attractive and a welcoming country for foreigners, despite some of the alterations that probably will be introduced into citizenship, just follow international rules and international regimes for citizenship. So we are open. Give us some suggestions for future webinars, more things you like to know. We will be here to provide consistent information that can help you in your process to move to Portugal. Thank you for attending. Thank you, Marisa.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to do this with you also.
Yes, it's a pleasure to host.
Thank you.
Thank you.